Cincinnati. Welcome to the jungle! Let's go. Stripes, 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 stripes. Yeah, stripes, stripes, stripes. Yeah, stripes, stripes, stripes. Yeah, orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, who day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. Who day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, every day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you reppin' who day, time to put your hands up. Bingo stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati jungle fitted. Who they in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we live it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the pounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes, Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move dancing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em. Yeah we fought 'em like that black and orange Apollo. Bingo bottle, never stop it. To the beast of beast and know who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossin' on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen. We gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, who day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Now who wanna move dancing on? Now who wanna move on? All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trunapple, and as always, I'm bringing you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the AFC North champs, the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, do me a favor, if you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button, smash that thumbs up. I'm up to 1,507 subscribers. That is awesome. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Now, if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, why the hell not? Go to the YouTube channel, Sports with Strawberry Ice. Hit the subscription button and hit the bell for notification. And every time I go live, you'll be notified. Also, exclusively in the YouTube chat, we're doing super chats. So if you like to make sure your comment gets read, or if you have a question for John Sheeran, he's on the show today, that's a good way to make sure I read it. Give me a super chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'm coming to you live from the Ice Cave. And the Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. All right, it is Combine week, so we're going to have some kind of football to watch if you guys are a geek like I am and into the Combine. So we'll be watching that this week. I'm going down Sunday to check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Got the free agent stuff we could talk about. Draft. Daniel Jeremiah seems to think that Linebaugh could be there at 31 for the Bengals. I don't think there's a shot in hell that's going to happen, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. But for all things Bengals news and otherwise, let's get to the man. Crypt Keeper calls him the brain, the Bengals brain, John Sheeran. John, what's going on, man?
Man, that intro, every time I watch it, I get more impressed because it goes on longer than I think it's going to. It's very, very impressive. It's an amazing video, amazing song. So, yeah, that always surprises me, though. But I'm doing good, Jeff. How are you?
Good, man. Good. I love that song. That's from Gift Vader and Black Light Production. I had nothing to do with it. They just let me play it all the time, and I love the damn song. And it gives me time to get things set up while people are getting ready to watch the show. So, all right, like I said, we got Combine Week this week. We also got free agency. Jesse Bates. Like I said, I said this on Twitter. I think I'm going to do this every day. I'm just going to tweet out hashtag extend JB3. Hoping it's going to happen sometime soon. What do you got? Any news or anything on the Bengals? Anything? I know you've been taking a break, but what have you been up to here since we're 2 weeks out of the Super Bowl here?
Yeah, so the Super Bowl is what, like day before Valentine's Day? It's like the latest NFL game in history or something like that, and it had a month between then and free agency. So I mean, I had to get some type of break in before things started to try to ramp up. So I've been writing that frequently at Cincy Jungle lately. Just been kind of taking a pseudo vacation, but the grind is starting back up, and decisions are going to be made here pretty shortly with the Bengals. They typically will handle some internal moves like maybe a week before free agency, so we're gonna get some content out. But yeah, deadlines they tend to pick things up, right? So if it's Bates as the big decision here, last year they had William Jackson III and Carl Lawson as big decisions, and they let both of them go. But I think we all can kind of see that Bates is more likely to get the tag than both of those guys. And if it comes down to it, I would expect that to happen. But they still got about 2 weeks here to kind of come to a decision. I'm sure Bates has a number, the Bengals have a number, and it's just a matter of if they can kind of get to a more happy medium here in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Because not only do you have to sign him, then you got to make a decision of either. I hope they sign both. I don't think they're going to, of either BJ Hill or Larry Ogunjobi, and I hope they get both of them. But if I had a choice, I'm more for BJ Hill than I am Larry. And Larry was good. There's nothing against Larry. I just think BJ was more consistent than BJ was. And if you got to pick one, it kind of reminds me a couple years ago when they had Michael Johnson and
Dunlap.
Thank you, Dunlap. And they kind of put a contract out there. The first one that took it got it. And I kind of think that's might be what they do with these two. I don't know.
Nah, that's a good point. Like that's what I thought as well. Just in the matter of, do they have enough money to get both to the deal that they want? Because obviously they know that there's a market out there for both of them, and they would, if they feel like they're not going to get what they want in Cincinnati, they are more than welcome to test that market. But you have to think that one of them is probably going to get re-signed, and I wouldn't put it past them to utilize that same method that they did with Michael Johnson and Dunlap. And Dunlap ended up taking that deal and ended up proving to be a lot more valuable than Michael Johnson. And I think if you were to compare these two, I think it's actually a decent comparison to be made. Like BJ Hill to me is like the Michael Johnson, and Ogunjobi is like the Dunlap, because Ogunjobi gives you more of an upside as a pass rusher, but he's not as consistent on a snap to snap basis. Now the whole factors with Dunlap, potential issues with like coaching and stuff like that, but maybe like a motor issue. I don't necessarily think that's an issue with Ogunjobi. It's just a matter of he's not as consistent as a run defender, but he provides you more of a spark as a pass rusher, and that's ultimately what they need the most at that position. They don't have a true 3 technique on the roster right now, and BJ Hill fills that role, but he was also a nose tackle for a decent amount of time in college and then with the New York Giants. So I understand the argument with BJ Hill. I also agree with you. I think he's a more consistent player, and he might provide you more of a return on investment. But the upside with Ogunjobi, I think that's why they wanted him on a 1-year deal last year, because he can give you 7-8 sacks in a pinch like that. And then hopefully he's doing well, rehabbing his injured foot, I believe. So honestly, I don't know off the top. I'm not really comfortable giving like a prediction as to who they sign, but I do think that method of offering both the similar deal and seeing which one takes it, I do think that is likely to happen probably.
Right. I was getting in kind of a little Twitter conversation here with PFF's Andrew Russell right before the show started, and I actually kind of like what he was saying. He was saying sign Bates, sign either or Hill or Ogunjobi, and pretty much put the rest of the money to the offensive line. And that kind of brings me to where last week I said, sign Jensen, move Hopkins to guard, and yada, yada, yada. And people didn't like it, which is fine. I mean, it's still, I think it would be making a better offensive line than we had last year. But let's go with this scenario. Let's say they keep Hopkins at center and we keep Jonah Williams at left tackle. So then you got to get at least, let's say you get 2 guards and a right tackle. So let's start off with the guards here. And I'll bring up PFF here. Now you got Scherf here, which, I mean, that's everybody's number one. I don't know if they're going to, I don't know if they'll spend the money to get him. I think we might have to scroll down a little bit farther down here. Tomlin, but the one I like is right here, Connor Williams. I like him. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Connor at all? Have you done anything on the free agency at all, or am I throwing you into the deep end here?
No, I remember Connor very well from when he was drafted out of Texas. He was a left tackle at Texas, and it was like him and Mike McGlinchey who were like two of the top tackles in that class. But Williams had the potential to move inside to guard because he wasn't as long of a player, but he had the athleticism to make that transition. And I think he's been fine as like a late second round pick. I think he was picked right after the Bengals picked Jesse Bates, and in 4 years in Dallas, he's developed into a solid starter. And I think this might be just like helmet scouting or just like a little lazy comparison, but I think of Williams as like a potential Chidobe Awuzie signing, where Awuzie was a decent player for Dallas, but he had upside to get better, to be a more consistent player. And you like the fact that Williams is not even 25 years old. He's younger than me. So, right. I mean, he's got the athletic tools to be a more stable player than he was in Dallas. And you have to think that going to Frank Pollock, you get better coaching. He stays potentially at his same position at left guard. There's continuity there, but you can see the PFF grades. He was 70 in 2020, 75 in 2021. Most of that, I think, is weighted for run blocking. He's still more of an inconsistent pass protector than you would like, but that's why he's not going to get, like, PFF projects him like $6.5 million a year. The top guards are getting 15 million, 16 million now. Like, he's not going to get the bag that Joe Tooney got. He's not going to get the bag that Brandon Scherf is going to get, which is why you're right. They're not going to pay Brandon Scherf that money. Connor Williams would be kind of a high upside signing that fits more of their budget, and they're banking on him getting better and more consistent. So I could definitely see him coming to Cincinnati.
Yeah, the only thing that a red flag for me is all the penalties he got this past year. But the entire Cowboys team was penalized, and I just think that's coaching, to be honest. And he can come to the Bengals, who is the least penalized team, I think, at least in the AFC. I think it might have been all of football. I don't know that offhand for sure. But either way, I think that they can coach that out of him. So that's one that I like. And then the other one I like here, let's see here. James Daniels, he's good, but I like Austin Coburn. That's another one I wouldn't mind. If you get two guards, I think these two would be guys that, like you just said, it's more of guys that are, I don't want to say lower, but they get them a cheaper price and they have a bigger upside, just like you said about Cheetah Bay.
Right. And they're projecting him like just around 10 million. I don't know. I always think guys are not going to get as much as they do, but then the market kind of speaks for itself, and these guys get a lot more than you expect. So maybe Corbett will break the $10 million mark, and maybe that's going to be a little bit too much from the Bengals perspective. But I remember Corbett came out of Nevada 2018, and I think he was a similar build to like Jonah Williams coming out of college. And Jonah was pegged as a guy who could play all 5 spots, very natural athleticism, kind of a nasty finishing blocker. And he practiced at like center and guard at the Senior Bowl, and he ended up being a guard in the NFL. He's been in the Rams for 3 years, and I think he's filled in well at right guard. And I think he's played a little bit of center too. So he's got legitimate positional versatility because of his size and his athleticism. And I think he's been a more consistent pass blocker compared to a guy like Connor Williams. So maybe that will get him more money in comparison. He's still relatively young. 26 is like the sweet spot for Bengals free agents nowadays. They sound like 5 guys at that age last year. So, there's familiarity with a similar scheme coming from the Rams going into the Bengals. But yeah, I think it's going to depend on price. I think Corbett's going to cost a little bit more compared to Connor Williams. And if they're legitimately serious about filling that guard spot, he would be a great choice. It's just a matter of how much actual real money up front is he going to get from the Bengals compared to another offer. That's always going to be the final thing that separates if they actually make these moves or not.
Right. Now, the thing I like about Austin Corbett, like you said, he's versatile. So that goes to where the Bengals need to add depth. And if you have a guy who can play both guards and center, that bodes well for just increasing the depth on the team. We're going to have injuries. I mean, hopefully we don't have, a ton of them, but I mean, to me, that's worth it right there. Because I mean, according to Dave Lapham, I mean, that man, he started in every position in the offensive line. He thinks Jonah Williams could play center, which maybe he could. I mean, Dave Lapham's forgot more about the offensive line than I'll ever know. So, but a guy who is able to move around like that, I think that makes him more valuable.
But to that point, and I know you brought up like moving Hopkins to guard, and I think Hopkins can play guard again. He was pretty decent. This was his first time playing guard in 2017. The offensive line was terrible.
It was garbage.
That's what I'm saying. Jake Fisher had a Bodine, and Trey Hopkins was pretty decent at right guard that year. So I think he can make that transition back. The thing is, though, like moving Hopkins and then therefore moving Williams, even though you have a degree of confidence that those guys are going to be fine in those spots, it's still a projection, and it's still a variable added on to the equation. You already have 3 other spots that need to be upgraded. So it's like, are you willing to add on more potential variables to the equation when you already have a not so stable situation? It's why they need contingencies if they're going to make those moves. And I think Ryan Jensen filling Trey Hopkins' spot and moving Hopkins over to one of the guard spots, I think that's a solid contingency. But it's just like, you can't just move around these pieces willy-nilly and expect everything to be fine.
Right, exactly. I mean, but preferably that's what I would prefer them to do, because what I would prefer them to do, if you're going to spend the money, and I've said this, is you spend the money. The Bengals typically do this. You guys said this on your show a ton of times. They don't spend money on guards. They spend them on tackles. They spend them on center. So that's where I'm like, if you can spend the money on your center and you get another tackle, then you can. I don't want to say mix and match with your guard, but I want him to sign 3. So if you can sign a center and you can sign a tackle and you sign a guard, then your other guard, you can have a competition with Trey Hopkins and Jax Carman, which I know people are kind of down on Jax Carman. But look at the jump that Logan Wilson made from one year to the next. I mean, the second year in the NFL, he can make a huge jump. Deontay Smith can make a huge jump. We don't know of what that could be. But if you have the anchors there, to me, that makes the rest of the offensive line better.
Pretty much. And I think in regards to, like, if they were to sign 3, I don't think it's going to be 3 guys from the outside, unfortunately. I think at most you'll probably see 2 external guys.
And probably send Spain back.
Yeah, it'd be like one of either Spain or Reef, depending on which other positions that they add. And I could definitely see a situation where they re-sign Spain to a similar deal and have a competition between him and Carman if they feel like Carman's just more natural to the left side. And then, like you said, Deontay Smith. I mean, people forget in the preseason, people were like counting on him to potentially be a starter because he was playing pretty well, and then he got injured. And like that was just the state of the offensive line. This guy from ECU who had COVID and lost 40 pounds, he was going to be the answer at one of those spots. So hopefully he uses this offseason to just kind of re-up everything that he did last year in terms of progress. I don't know, like he was, I think, at left tackle in the times that he did play this season, and I don't know if that is going to be his position going forward. There's so much that we just don't know, honestly.
Right.
And like they just need as many decent pieces as possible. But I think ultimately what you'll see is probably 2 new faces, hopefully 2 new veterans, and then that third spot that they need to fill. I think it's going to ultimately be some type of competition because they need at least one of Carman or Smith to hit. If neither hit, that's just a total L on their end, and they're hoping that Trey Hill somehow develops into a decent center in the years down the road, which I think they like Trey Hill, but I don't think they want to rely on him being the one piece from that class that it hits.
Well, and that's the thing, John, where they're at, they can't, where the offensive line is, they can't take a chance, in my opinion, that these guys will hit next year. They have to have it fixed. And that's where I'm like, I could see them. That's where I just keep going. I can see if they're going to spend money, I can see them spending money on a center and a tackle. And then I hate to say mix and match with guards, but I can see them doing it because they think these guys can be their future guards. And you don't want to they don't want to sign a guard who's there for 3 years and they have Jax Carman and Deontay Smith behind them and they can't get any playing time. But I don't mind that because of depth, because you always have injuries and stuff. So I don't mind that. I don't know if that's what the Bengals are thinking, but that's typically how they think.
In a perfect world, I think if they filled those spots and had Carman and Smith still riding the bench for a year or 2, you have to think about their contracts. They would be up in like 2025 or something like that. Right. I think with Clint Bowling, well, no, that's a bad example because he started immediately. But Clint Bowling was relatively inexpensive when he signed his extension. I think he signed like $5 million a year, and he was a decent starter. I think in their mind, if they can get Carman and or Smith starting experience sometime before their rookie deals expire, and then best case scenario, they're just decent guys, then they become a lot more affordable when they hit the open market, and then they can retain them. And that's their situation. Like that's their sweet spot, because they were never going to pay Kevin Zeiler what he wanted. They're never going to pay a top guard at that position. They only look for value at those spots. And if they can develop those guys to a decent enough point where you can have them out there, they're not liabilities, but they're also not going to be on the high end. And this is obviously projecting 3 years down the road, but this is like in their mind what they want to happen probably.
Right. I get to Dustin Croft here. Thanks for the $4.99 super chat. He says, I've been somewhat confused by just the overall strategy behind building and developing.
You're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of guys to play positions that haven't been there. I agree. I agree with you. I mean, that's where I'm kind of like, I want a center and a tackle. I want that fixed. And then, we go. I'm okay with Spain, to be honest. I don't mind if they re-sign Spain. I'm okay if they re-sign Reef. If Reef is your right tackle next year, it's not horrible. I'm just concerned about his injury now, and if he can make it, he can make it a whole season this year. So that's where go ahead, John.
Well, he's not just injured. He's for
old.
NFL standards, yeah, he's 33, 34 years old. I didn't want to say he's old. I don't know how old you are. I don't want to like make an enemy.
I'm older than him. I'll be 47 in April. I'm well beyond my prime.
Okay, so yeah, you're even past Brady. All right, so
I'm
the thing with Reef, and then you can include Spain here too. Like they're at the point where they're on the other side of 30, and you saw it with Spain this year. Like he was healthy, but his play declined as the season went on, and I think that's just natural for an offensive lineman at that point in his career. So I think with both Spain and Reef, if you had them as week one starters, you're feeling okay. But how long are they going to last at a competent level? And obviously now Reef has an ankle to worry about. Who even knows if he even wants to play next year? Like if he does, I think they would welcome him back and as somewhat of a competition based deal. But yeah, like at that point, you want to preferably get younger at that position because you don't know how long you can count on those guys to be competent starters in an 17 game schedule.
Right, exactly. Now, like I said, my philosophy is to fix the offensive line of free agency and then draft the best players available. Now, this goes to what Worthless Terry says here. Devontae Watt is a top 3 tech defender tackle in the draft and very well could be available at 31. And I agree, he could be. But the thing is, if you don't fix the offensive line, this is what I'm afraid of, John. I don't want the Billy Price thing to happen again. I don't want them to have, their mind set on one guy and he's not there, and then they go, oh crap, we gotta go do something else. That's to me where the offensive line has to be fixed in free agency because then it opens the draft up. You could draft Watt, you could draft Kobe Bryant, you could draft Linebaugh if he's there. You could draft the best player available, and that's where the Bengals need to get because they have to get better depth and linebackers and tight ends, and they still got to get a DB. So somewhere we got to get in our DB to not necessarily replace Eli Apple because I'm okay with Eli being your number 4, but a number 2 guy. We got to get at least a number 2 cornerback.
Right, and I think the dichotomy between what the offense is right now and the defense is fascinating because the defense is built entirely through free agency, but you don't have long-term depth there, right? You have compared to both units, it's the older of the units, and then the last defensive player that they picked with the first-round pick was William Jackson. Like it's been John Ross, Billy Price, Jonah Williams, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Half of those guys hit, but the other half obviously didn't. They need like young elite defensive talent for the future, and 3 technique would be a great start for that. Even if they saw a pass rusher or an edge rusher that they liked, I think that would be fine. Cornerback, if they don't have a surefire answer, I think that would be a good spot for it as well. Like they've just been so focused on building the offense in the draft, and now it's at a great place for the long term, and they have stability and continuity there. But in going back to Dustin Croft, because I feel like I didn't fully answer like the first part of his question. Like only Quinn Spain was added or brought back to play like a natural position. They added Jackson Carman, a college left tackle, to play a position he's never played before, a position that he could have feasibly projected to play well, but obviously it didn't happen immediately. Riley Reef never played right tackle, I think once year in the NFL. He was a career left tackle coming out of Iowa. Like it would be nice to bring in guys that have experience at those positions when you're not just moving these chess pieces around. And then obviously you can add more depth there at those positions. But yeah, defensively, they need an injection of younger talent to basically fill out that unit. But now you're at a position where they don't need to rebuild the defense like they did the past 2 years. You can focus most of your assets on the offensive side of the ball in free agency and then look to draft defensively.
Yeah, so they might just flip it from what they've done the last couple of years. You go heavy free agent in last couple of years, heavy free agency in the defense and draft the offense. I think they're going to flip it this year. I think it's going to be heavy free agent for the offensive line, and then they're going to draft heavy in defense because, like you said, there are positions that these guys are their contracts are only signed for 2 or 3 years, which is great, but you got to have somebody behind them to replace them if you're not going to, because they can't resign all of them. Just like we're talking about with Larry Ogunjobi and BJ Hill, they're most likely not going to sign both of them. I mean, I hope they do, but I don't see how they can work that out. Now, there are some thoughts of whenever they cut Trey Waynes, that's going to open up some more money as well there. And somebody told me, if they sign Ryan Jensen, would that in turn for them to turn around and cut Trey Hopkins? And I personally don't think they will, because Mike Brown is loyal to a fault sometimes for his players. And I think they really, and James Rapine said this last week too, that they really appreciate what Trey did last year, how hard he worked to come back and what he went through to try to get back and be there for the team. So I don't think they'll cut Trey, but I could see them moving him. But Trey Waynes, why haven't they cut him yet? That's what are they waiting on?
we do this every single year. Like 1 year it was Trey Kirkpatrick, 1 year it was
Yes.
Vontaze Burfict. Like we know these guys are going to be gone. The timing is basically irrelevant. Like on their books, his contract doesn't exist anymore. It's just a matter of like when, not if.
Right,
And
right.
I don't think that the timing is going to impact what decisions that they make. Like we have an idea of what their salary cap looks like, and they have their own books, their own calculations, and everything. I think Trey Waynes is like he might as well not be on the roster anymore. But like it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it. Now this is interesting. I would like this, but I just don't think the Bengals will spend this much money.
No,
Bridget here says she's seen a sports site where they said we're going to get Armstead. I don't see them spending the money. Yeah, go ahead.
That site doesn't follow the Bengals very often. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like Armstead obviously would be phenomenal. He's like
it'd be
a
awesome.
tackle of that caliber, even if he is 30, doesn't hit the open market very much. But you have to like just think about this logically. The offensive line for the Bengals is not good. Like
No.
as a total unit, it's not good. And Armstead alone doesn't solve it. Just like Joe Tooney in theory wouldn't have solved it on his own last year. And
Yeah,
like
they
look
need
at
multiple guys.
look at how they try to solve these problems. Like they attack it with multiple people. Like last year, they signed Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton, completely revamped the secondary. When they needed linebackers 2 years ago, they didn't go after like a Corey Littleton or Nick Wyowski. They drafted 3 guys, and 2 of them ended up becoming decent players, including Logan Wilson. They like to solve this via quantity over, I guess, quality in terms of like the highest paid guys. So
Right.
Armstead would be phenomenal, but you need more than that. And in their mind, like you can't get a more total fix to the problem if you're investing like 40 million in year one cash for a left tackle.
Mm-hmm. And the 2 top guys here are Orlando Brown and Armstead. I don't think we're going to get either one of them. So we scroll down lower. You got Dewan Brown, who's it's all right. I'm not too big on him, but I've kind of more come to Morgan Moses Moss, however you say his name. I don't think he would be bad. I mean, he would be not a complete fix. You know, he'd be here for a year or 2, but we have draft and develop somebody. But I could see them going after him.
Potentially, yeah. I remember him being like a potential target last year when he signed with the Jets, and I think he was good enough on that offensive line to get another contract. But again, 31 years old, very similar situation. I think Riley Reef of last year. It's just a matter of how long are you expecting this guy to be a consistent, stable player? Like, where is that cliff for Morgan Moses? And I think if they're going to sign someone long term beyond just a 1-year deal, I think you're going to see probably a younger body.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you scroll past him, I mean, Eric Fisher's not bad. I don't know if I go. Let's see who's after him. Trent Brown's not bad. I think that's about as far as I would probably go. I think I got Reef. Which of course I'd resign Reef. So I would go past Reef. I don't want to diss my boy there. But everybody, you get the other guys. They're okay. But I mean, if you're going to get somebody, you need somebody who's actually going to plug and play. You stick somebody over there and they're good. Who out of these guys I've been scrolling through? Who's the one that you would like them to get?
Well, Trent Brown kind of scares me a little bit because he was good with the Patriots, but like the Patriots is where he was brought up, and then he signed a huge deal with the Raiders and flamed out there. He gained a lot of weight. Then he came back to the Patriots, just very classic Patriots fashion, right? You go back to them, and then you're a decent player. Then now he's looking for another deal. So I don't know if you can completely trust him to be good outside of that system. But honestly, like looking at this list, I think from their point of view, like they probably trust Reef more than most of these guys. And I think that's a avenue for them to bring him back on a 1-year deal. But also there's the trade market as well. I know people are infatuated with trading for a guy like Laramie Tunsil, and that would only happen if they have a deal similar to what they did with Cordy Glenn. These guys, the Bengals, do not like to give up draft capital, even for known commodities. There has to be some type of an exchange of picks, like a pick swap, where they're giving like a first round
picks
second.
back. Right.
Exactly. And if they can find a deal like that, and there's more potential tackles that are on the move in the trade market aside from Tunsil, if they can find that, I think that's a potential option. But also, he would have to have a contract that doesn't have a lot of like real guaranteed salaries attached to it.
Yeah, and Tunsil, I mean, you're not getting Tunsil at 31. They're not going to give you. I mean, if they said that they would do that, I would take that in a heartbeat. But there's no way they're giving you Tunsil just for 31. It's going to be 31 and a second round pick and some money or something. And like you said, the Bengals want something coming back. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I mean, there's so many options that are going on here. We'll be talking about this for the next 2 weeks here. Let's see here. Royal Flush Cherry says reportedly David
Njoku.
Thank you. Njoku will receive a contract worth $10 million a year for Cleveland. How much would Uzama command?
I don't think that much. I would be shocked to see that offer from Free Njoku come through because he's been really inconsistent. You're just banking on youth and upside there. He's also like I think 24, 25 years old. Njoku would be interesting on like a 1-year deal just to see like what he could do on a prove it basis. But I think with Uzama, I think he's kind of a special case just because he just loves it here, like genuinely. I think he would take a little bit less. This would be his third contract, so he already made a decent amount off his second deal. I think that was like $6 million a year. I could see him taking something similar, maybe on like more of a 2-year, even a 1-year basis. Like I don't think he's looking to really max out his earnings here if he just loves it here so much. And obviously, everyone in Cincinnati rightfully loves CJ Uzama, so I could see him taking a little bit less.
CJ Uzama was going to take a bath in Skyline Chili if he won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's now you can't get much more Cincinnati than that. Now this is one Greg Graves brought this up, the center from Baltimore, and that came out last week that the Bengals might be interested in him, which again goes to what I was saying. If they're looking at a center, then I really do think they're talking about moving Hopkins to guard. But what do you think about? I can't think of the guy's name right now.
Bradley Bozeman.
Thank you, Bozeman. Yes. What's your thoughts on him?
So I think he was a center at Alabama. I know he was a center at the Senior Bowl, so I think he was a center at Bama. He wasn't a particularly great one. He was drafted in like the 5th round, but the Ravens know how to develop offensive linemen, and they started him at left guard the first 3 years of his career. Then they moved him to center. I think PFF graded him the highest that he's ever been graded in his 4 years now. So people look at him as a center because that's the most recent tape that they have, and he was decent at it. But he has athletic limitations that you would preferably not want in a center in a wide zone scheme. And this has brought up conversations like, are the Bengals revolving a little bit schematically to fit more, to marry their run game better with their passing game out of shotgun? Because you can't really run wide zone out of shotgun. You can have more of a downhill gap scheme attack, which fits what Bozeman does well. He doesn't have the athleticism to make reach blocks like a Trey Hopkins can. Like a peak Trey Hopkins, a healthy Trey Hopkins can make some of those more athletic reach blocks, if you will. And Bozeman isn't really that. Like I think if he's a guard, you can kind of hide his athletic limitations a little bit more in their scheme. But I don't know. It really depends on how much that he's commanding, because I think Baltimore has developed him nicely, and it would be weird to see him let go.
Sorry, my dog is going nuts.
He had something to say about Bozeman.
He did. He was agreeing with everything you said, John. He was totally agreeing with everything you said. So, okay. So what is, I don't know off the top of my head, what is the cap space the Bengals actually have as of right now? Do you know? Do you know?
It's about
50
it's about 50 million, and they can get 10 with Trey Waynes. But I mean, people are saying like, okay, just pay Jesse Bates with the money you save for Trey Waynes. The money that they're going to save from Trey Waynes is probably just going to be rolled over to the next year. Like that's not changing. They're always going to roll over 8 to 10 million, especially this year, because beyond this year, you have extensions for Joe Burrow and T. Higgins on the horizon, if you will. So they're always going to roll over that money. So I would just say 50 million is the cap space.
All right. So you got 50 million. So you're probably looking at, I would think more 10 million per for I think would they pay 10 million per for a guard? I mean, would they do that? I don't know. That's all.
That's still more than I would expect to be.
Yeah, I mean they need to. I'd like them to, but I just don't see them doing it. I mean, and what kills me is I'm kind of hoping they'll change their mind, because season tickets are almost sold out. They've raised prices, so they got all that money coming in. So to show the fans that we're seriously into this, go out and really get an offensive line. But it's just they don't pay for guards, John. They just don't. They never have. That's why I'm like, this is the 50 years or whatever this is the way the organization's been run. I know they've changed, but I just don't see that. I don't know.
I just don't think that they've changed that much philosophically. I think they do realize that there's a window now, and I think they're cognizant of that, but that can only go so far as to changing like their philosophical beliefs on what positions are the most valuable. And obviously they want to get better on offensive line. They want to get better their way. And ideally that's draft and develop and sign high value guys with the potential of getting better. And that's where you get some of these deals that they're more willing to offer. Like I think 10 million is probably what they offered Joe Thuney, but knowing that he was going to get a lot more, it was basically a fruitless effort. So I people love to get attached to like the average annual value, but it's really about like how much are you getting any of your salaries guaranteed? Because that's usually what exists in those top contracts. And you look at like the top, the average annual value, and a lot of those guys just have real money, real salaries that they're going to be guaranteed regardless if you stay with the team. And you look at Trey Hendrickson, he got 15 million a year, but only like 15 at signing, and none of his salaries are guaranteed. Like if you find a guy that is willing to take a deal like that, then you're in business. They would be fine offering that number that everyone loves. But obviously, if you're going to be offered a little bit more real money, then you're going to take that. That's ultimately what matters. And the offensive line market has just exploded in recent years because everyone realized you need good offensive line talent. And that's why the prices have increased, and they've just continued to stay behind the times there. And they try to make it up with roster bonuses and stuff like that, but it only goes so far when every other team is more willing to do that.
Yeah, and the one thing that hopefully I hope they don't bank on this too much is guys will be willing to take less money to come here because you got a chance to win a ring, block for Joe Burrow. I mean, I think that is a thing. I mean, but I hope they don't go rely on that too much.
It's a thing for the guys like Morgan Moses or the guys who are at that stage of their careers, not for the guys who are looking for their first contract. Right. It's only for the guys who have made enough money in their careers. They see Joe Burrow. They're Riley Reef, basically. They're in the last leg of their careers. They believe in this guy. They want to compete for championships. And for the first time in my lifetime, the Bengals are competing for championships, and that matters.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, and that goes back to so I could see Morgan Moses being a guy, that they go after. So I don't know. We'll see. And one thing I know, I haven't done a huge deep dive into the draft, but one thing I didn't think it was a very deep offensive line draft. But according to Daniel Jeremiah, he said that the Bengals could get somebody in the lower rounds that'd be better than the starters we have. Which, I mean, that could be just how bad he thinks the starters we had were. So some people are like, "Well, that's great. We can do that." Like, yeah, but they can't rely on that. That's the one point I keep saying. The Bengals cannot rely on the draft for this offensive line. They can't.
Well, they can't because the track record stinks. Like you can
Especially
find in this past draft, if they were to draft a lineman in the second round and the fourth round, they would be fine if they weren't Jackson Carman and Deontay Smith. Like Creed Humphrey was a second round pick, and he should have been all pro with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like they could have drafted Trey Smith, who ended up in the sixth round. He also went to the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs are the model of how to completely revamp your offensive line. And I think that's something that Jeremiah says basically every year. Like you can find decent offensive line talent in the later parts of the draft because he knows where to find them, but the Bengals don't. The Bengals don't know how to find those guys. So like you said, they can't rely on it because of that.
Yeah, I mean, what the funny thing is they, they have found those guys in the past. It's just the last 10 years they haven't done it. They've swung and missed so many freaking times. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's gonna be an ongoing conversation. This whole offseason, always till we get it figured out what they're going to do. But like I said, I brought it up a little earlier. The other issue I think for starter is they got to get a number 2 cornerback. We kind of touched on it a little bit. I don't personally think they're going to sign one. I think there's enough guys in this draft they can get one. I personally, being a Bearcat fan, would love Kobe Bryant to be there in the second round and have him, right alongside of Cheetah Bay. But what's your thoughts on? I know you haven't done a lot in the draft, but your thoughts on the cornerback and guys they could sign. I'll go free agency or draft. Guys they could sign. Which way they could go.
Yeah, it's actually a decent class of free agent cornerbacks that are available. I know Malik Wright has thrown out Dante Jackson, a guy from Carolina. I think he picked off Andy Dalton when they played them back in 2018. I think that's a potential option. Like that's a position that they are willing to spend. So if there's a guy who fits their market, like I could definitely see them going after one of those guys. Because I don't think they want to go into the draft needing a starting cornerback. I think depending on what happens for agency, you could see Eli Apple being brought back on a team-friendly deal because honestly, I don't know what the perception of Eli Apple is outside of Cincinnati. This is his fourth team. He's pissed off every team that he's been with aside from Cincinnati. I don't know if teams want to deal with that press of bringing him in. So I think that in itself could lower Apple's value and have him being brought back to compete for playing time, not as an established number 2 cornerback, even though he played at that level this year. So I could see a guy like Dante Jackson being signed in because I don't think they want to enter the draft needing a guy opposite of Awuzie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to bring up my PFF here. I can't get my computer to scroll down fast enough to bring it up for you. But I know a lot of people that I talked about is J.C. Jensen. He would be great. I don't see the Bengals spending the money to get him, but I think he would be a really good pickup for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, Patriots know how to develop those cornerbacks, and this is again another Patriots player who's not going to get tagged, and every Bengals fan wants him, and odds are he's not going to come here.
Right. Exactly. We keep doing this all because I mean last year, I mean, dude, we everybody kept talking about oh crud.
Tooney.
Tooney here too. Bungle for Tooney. Go get Tooney. I'm like, I hope they get him, but they need more than one. And that's the thing. We're in the same damn position we were last year. So we need more than one. But the good thing with quarterback, we really only need one. And if they've done a really good job from just talk about secondary from Bell to Cheetah, hell, to Eli Apple, give him credit. He is what he is. He's not a starting cornerback, but they've done really well at finding guys in their late 20s, early 30s on the up trajectory here. So I think they're going to go along that same line. But like I said, if you fix the offensive line free agent, you can draft a guy.
Well, here's the good news, I think, because you look at the last 2 years, and the offensive line was obviously bad going back to now, 5 years. So the offensive line has been a weakness for a while, but the defense was also just abysmal, and they put in a lot of resources to fix and field a competent defense. And then now they have that. They still need to bring back Bates and one of Hill and Ogunjobi, but the core of the defense is more or less there, and they not only have money to spend, but they have to spend some of this money in order to hit the minimum cap spending. Right. And there's only so much that they can spend on defense and justify it at this point. They have nowhere else to spend on offense aside from tight end, and you don't really spend that much money on a tight end anyways. They're going to spend at offensive line to some degree. They're going to add probably 2 new bodies. It's just a matter of how expensive those bodies are, and if those bodies are actually good at playing football. That remains to be seen.
Let's hope they get guys that are good at playing football. But yeah, that's right. I think they're going to sign 2. I'm hoping they'll sign 3. But like I said, the third one I could see being Quentin Spain or Riley Reef, because they like bringing their own guys back. I mean, that's just a Bengal thing. And all right, let's put it this way. Out of the 2, if you had to pick between Reef or Q, which one would you want to bring back?
I think... Man, they're basically the same player to me, honestly. Mm-hmm. It's just one is coming off of an injury and one's a little bit older. But, I mean, you look at the other potential tackles, I think the guard market is just a little bit stronger. And I think your chances of finding a better player, well, it's also different because you need 2 guards, and Spain is can only play one position. So I think Reef has more value to them because of their other options. A tackle may not be as good as their other options compared to Spain. But I also don't think that Spain is going to command that much, to be honest with you. I think it'll be a very reasonable deal, if not another 1-year deal, because of just how he finished and how maybe the rest of the NFL season. So I think probably Reef, just because obviously tackles are still more important as well. But I think the other options aside from Reef aren't as good compared to the other options aside from Spain.
Yeah, I mean, with Reef, to me, it also depends on, like you said, how he is recovering from that injury, because the ankle injury must have been, I don't know if he broke it or what he did. I never really heard the details of what he did to his ankle, but it was so bad he never played again. Yeah. And props to Logan Wilson, who we just found out had a torn labrum in his shoulder and finished the whole season and played really, really well. So, all right, let's just say the Bengals fix the offensive line, which we all yeah. Let's say they fix it, which I hope they do. I'm praying they fix it. What does that say for the rest of the NFL looking at the Bengals going, all right, they already went to the Super Bowl with a crappy offensive line. Now they got a good one. Oh, crap. Does it really put the Bengals on the people's radar now? More than it is now.
It does, but I don't think it's as simple as that, because despite the offensive line being terrible, they had a lot of other things go right for them. And those are things that you can't expect to continue being at that level going forward. They were incredibly healthy. They got a lot of production out of their defense. I think there are going to be some areas where they experience just natural regression, but I think that balances out with the offensive line getting better, because they had a really explosive passing offense with a really terrible offensive line. Maybe you see some of those explosive plays go down because it's hard to sustain that level, but with a more consistent offensive line and Burrow under pressure less, I think the offense becomes more consistent and you're not as reliant on some of those explosive plays. And then as long as the defense, maintains a similar level, I think you will see a team that doesn't always have to win in the ways that they did in the past year. And things open up more for the offense because you're not game planning around a bad offensive line. So the offensive line improving does a lot to make them a more consistent team, and that can help counter out some of the things that might regress next year.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people ask me during the season, like, when's this offense going to get consistent? I said, easy when the offensive line play gets consistent, because if you're always, trying to run for your life and you don't have holes to run through and you don't have time to throw the ball, it's hard to have anything consistent. So that goes back to what we were saying before, is if the Bengals go all in on the offense and not as much on the defense this year, that would help out, because it would kind of counterbalance what we had. Because let's be honest, this past year, if it wasn't for the defense, the Bengals would have been nowhere close to a Super Bowl or a winning record or anything. The defense was huge last year.
But that's also why I think you will see them prioritize guys who have proven that they can stay healthy. And that's not necessarily a shot at Terran Armstead. Like, his whole injury issues are kind of overblown, but I think they will value guys who have played a lot and can prove that they can stay on the field. Because if they sign guys at offensive line and they get injured, like, they're back to square one. Like, that's a lot of money out the door and no progress to show for it.
Exactly, because like I said, we don't have depth. We don't have another guy to come in and really, plug and play. Now, but like I said, hopefully that Deontay Smith and Jax Carmer can make a huge leap, which it could happen. But to me, that's not something that you are going to bank on. They need proven guys that can go in there and fix it and be fine with it. So anyway, we got about 2 more weeks of free agent talk till something finally happens, hopefully. But John, as always, I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody about the Orange and Black Insider podcast and Cincy Jungle and everything else you got going on.
Yeah, February is about to turn to March, so we got a lot more content about to come out on Cincy Jungle. You can follow us at Cincy Jungle on Twitter and on the website, cincyjungle.com. The Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast is the podcast for Cincy Jungle. It's me and Anthony Cosenza, who I'm sure all of you are familiar with. If you're not, I don't know why you wouldn't be. So yeah, just check us out every Wednesday night at 8:30 Eastern time.
Exactly. I will be checking it out. Well, hopefully, to me, I have to go to bed sometimes because I go to work so daggone early. So sometimes I'm like, oh, you guys are on. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? And then, crap, I got to go to bed. So
if that's the case, you can find us on every where you can get your podcast.
I do. I listen to it. I work on the podcast all the time. So anyway, John, as always, I appreciate you, man. And we'll have to do this again. I'm sure we will. We got lots of stuff to talk about.
It's been too long, man, but it's a good timing because like this week is a big week for the West Side. Zip Dip's opening back up.
Woo!
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about, baby. I knew I liked you. All right, John. Talk to you later, man. See ya.
See you, man.
Now that's a West Sider right there knows about Zip Dip. Yeah, that's some good ice cream right there. Anyway, I know. If you're not a West Sider, you don't know anything about it. Anyway, let's get to the Facebook groups that let me live stream, and I appreciate every single one of them. They are Houday Nation, Houday Legion, Cincinnati Reds, riding third, heading for home, Bearcat Country, Bearcat Ruckus, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar. And you can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter handle is at Jeff A. Trunapole. TikTok is at Iceman90. Like John said, if you missed the show, it's going to be on the podcast. You can listen to it tonight, tomorrow, at work, whenever. It'll be on BeanPod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Give me a 5-star review. Leave a comment so more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. YouTubers, 1,507 subscribers. That is awesome. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors about Sports with Strawberry Ice. Let's try to get to 2,000 as fast as we can. I appreciate everybody watching. Like I said, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Matt Jenkins, I agree with you. Ryan Jensen, please. I would love to get him. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I could see them signing a center and a tackle and trying to fill in with Quentin Spain and maybe Hopkins at guard. I really could see that. I know people call me crazy, but I could totally see that them doing that. But we'll see what happens. March 15th is free agency. I'm going to the combine on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Other than that, you guys have a great day. As of tomorrow, I have no guests. I'm working on it still. It might just be you and me. We'll have to see, but check it out tomorrow. I'll be back better than ever. And other than that, that's just sports, baby. See ya!
Let's go. In the night, stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black, and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, Houday, we ignite. And Cincinnati, we gon' rise. And in the jungle, we unite. And dripping orange and black and white. Houday, when we fight, living the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you rapping, who that? Time to put your hands up. Bingo stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati jungle fitted. Who they in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we live it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the pounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes, Cincinnati, we gon' rise in the in the jungle, we unite in the drippin' orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move dancing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move out on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em, yeah we fought 'em. Like that black and orange upon 'em, bingo bought 'em, never stop it till the beast done feastin' on 'em. Who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossin' on